Want to pick a card?
Yes. And I will.
Yes. And do you want to put it somewhere fun?
Yes. And should I know what it is?
Yes. And do you want to put it near the top?
Yes. And you know what? No. I'm going to put it... Yes.
Yes. Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Discourse in Magic.
It's a really fun episode with our friend Chris Westfallv. We've known him for a long time, another great Toronto magician. Actually, he'll say he's a Scarborough magician, though he lives in Toronto now.
Yes, and... he's a really good friend of ours from Toronto, and we see him at Sorcerer's Safari Magic Camp, so big shout out to that. And anyways, it's a really fun episode. He talks about improv, but he sort of talks about how he got into magic, restaurants, and being a worker.
That's something I've always admired about him. He's a very hard worker in magic. He's always performing. He does a lot of shows, and he's talking. He talks a lot about his growth and how he's changing what he's doing now. And he's out of the restaurant world, and well, he's still in it, but
now doing also big stage stuff, and how he got into it is a really, really funny story. So without further ado, here it is, episode 8 of Discourse in Magic.
Check it out.
Hello everybody and welcome to Discourse in Magic. We are here with Chris Westfallv.
What's going on?
And of course I am Jonah and this is Tyler.
How's everybody doing?
Today we're going to talk a little bit about improv, a little bit about handling your audience, a little bit about what to do on stage, and just a ton of advice that Chris has for us. So just to jump right in as usual, how did you get started in magic? It's really weird because we've been friends for a long time. We've known each other. We're like Toronto guys. We went to camp for a long time. And we almost don't know anybody's intro magic story. So this is kind of like a really fun thing to be doing. So how'd you get in it?
So it started in grade 9. I got a book. And I started, one book. Big blue book of magic. That's what
it was. Really?
The big blue book of magic. I still own it. It's true. I hide old photos of girls in there. Anyways, I started reading the book, and I started doing magic, and then I brought it back to school, and I started doing magic. Everyone thought it was awesome, but it was also like kind of nerdy, So it was like okay, Chris, these card tricks, they're good, but okay, that's pretty good. Anyways, so I continued doing magic. Almost halfway secretly, like my good friends knew that I did it, but I kind of like kept it to myself. And then when I was in grade 10, after doing magic for about a year and a half, I got in a little bit of trouble. And in that trouble, I had a lot of time on my hands. Like I was locked in my home for a year, time on my hands. But my father used to send me off to the magic shop. He'd be like, Chris, you know what, that's good for you. So he would allow me to go to the magic shop, so I spent a lot of my time hanging out at the magic shop. I also used it as an excuse to sneak out and hang out with my friends and stuff like that. But I used that time to really tone my skills and practice magic and do magic and get more serious in magic. And then as soon as I was allowed out again, I pretty much got my first restaurant gig. So
wow,
yeah.
You just prepared.
Yeah, exactly.
And then crushing it since then.
Yeah, and then it's been kind of nonstop.
Yeah.
Except for a year and a half break when in my early 20s where I ran away to Calgary. But that's here nor there.
We will maybe get to that later.
Yeah. That's one of the things I think is most interesting about you as a magician is that you are someone who just worked. Right from the get-go, you've been on the grind with magic and taking it seriously. I think that there's a lot of that says a lot about your character and your performance style. You know what I mean? Like, you do have a very sort of worker's mentality, and I think that's what we want to talk about.
Yeah, like, a lot of people, a lot of magicians are, they really study magic, and they really study technique, and they don't get out and perform. And a good mix of both is important, but really, like, you need to be performing to be, like, actually getting better and better, and you've been performing, like, I don't
think I've ever seen you not performing, you know what I mean?
So the first question is, how do you perform so much? Let's talk about that. So how does somebody, if someone was like, okay, I'm doing magic, I like it, I want to get out there, do you say just find a restaurant?
Yeah, I think the secret to performing a lot is performing a lot.
Nice.
All right, that's it's straight up. That's it. You know what I mean? We're the only profession out of between actors and improv that say, "Oh, I want to become a professional magician," and you think you're going to jump in and people are going to pay you a lot of money. And sometimes it can happen that way. Like, you know, when I started doing my first restaurant gig, I kind of fell into it, and he's like, "Oh, I'll give you $25 an hour to come in here and do magic tricks." I'm like, $25 an hour? What? Really? You know, I was like 18 years old. All my friends were working at McDonald's or selling stuff. Anyways,
but like, what an interesting way to earn a worker's mentality. You know, a lot of magicians are like, no, like, don't step into the restaurant market unless you price yourself incredibly high. You know, like people say, they say like, you're undercutting
your value,
you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think that's amazing because as an 18-year-old, instead of evaluating yourself probably much higher than your skills permit, you evaluate yourself at a place where you can actually put in the hours and like do that grind.
I didn't even actually think I knew what the market was at that time. You know, I was just
I
offered.
can tell you're like excited about how
I was offered an
then.
X amount.
Yeah.
You know, I was offered an X amount, and I just thought, oh man, this is awesome, you know, and I did it every Friday, and there's no better way to become a good performer than performing a lot. And like I said, you know...
And how many hours on Friday? Sorry.
3 hours every Friday. Cool. And then next thing you know, people are like, do you have business cards? I'm like, oh crap, I better get business cards. So I go get business cards, and it's like, hey, do you do birthday parties? I'm like, okay, I better learn how to do a birthday party.
That's so funny because it seems like everyone else goes into magic the other way. They're like, I'm going to get business cards, I'm going to get a website, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this, and then I'm going to get a case, and then I'm going to go to magic. And then you're doing magic, and every time someone asks you a question, you're like, I need that. Like, do you have a case? You're like, oh, now I need a case.
Yeah, it's just, you know, and I kind of find, and like I keep going back, like, because I do all the stand-up stuff and like the acting stuff, and all these guys, they do that every night for free. Every single night of their life, man. There's comics who are like trying to tone their skills, and they go to 2 and 3 open mics every single night for free, just to stand up on stage and have no one laugh at them.
Just to have air
That's
time
it, just to get on stage, you know? And same with actors. They're going for 1 million auditions and different styles of rehearsals, and they're getting nowhere. Musicians are playing every single night and not doing anything with themselves. And magicians are like, well, I'm going to go on and charge $400 or $500 an hour, and I'm going to be a crappy magician. Give yourself time to be a crappy magician so that you can be a good magician and make a lot of money 100%. Doing it.
One of the things that encouraged me to start traveling to camps is I saw someone else doing something smaller. Someone else came to a camp that I went to do a show, and they did apparently a horrible job. I didn't go, and apparently they had to give the money back to the staff because this guy did a horrible job. And I just thought to myself, like, if this guy's being paid to do a horrible job, I can be paid to do a horrible job. I mean, hopefully I'll do a good job, but like, whatever, like, I'd rather market myself lower and get in there and just start doing it at reasonable and, you know, and get paid and get better at the job, at this opportunity, instead of like, you know, waiting for something and trying to get it at a high price and then not being able to have honed skills. That's pretty clever. I resonate with that.
Yeah, I think another way to look at it is sort of not put the sort of value and performance in the money, right? Like, if you want to do magic, you should be doing it because you enjoy the art itself, and like being able to get out there and perform and get reactions and get better and better is rewarding enough. And the bonus of it is the more you do that, the better you get, and then you can actually charge like a reasonable amount of money to do it as a profession, which is what.
And it is very different than performing for your friends.
Yeah, I think when you're being paid, generally speaking, people are expecting goodness, which is actually on your side. Like, as a magician, you go in kind of mysterious. I mean, your friends and family will tear you a new asshole. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Well, you are.
But, you know, people generally will give you the benefit of the doubt. So, you know, fake it till you make it, and it works like that with everything. And as long as you just keep performing, you're just going to get better and stronger, and your skills are going to be toned until, you're performing at one gig for 400, and you get a guy who comes up to you. They never know how much you charge, and they say, "Hey, I have a gig. Can you do it for 1,000 for an hour walk? Can you do this for 1,000?" And you're like, "Okay, of course, yes, I can. Of course, I got that. Well, that's a little, you know what? It's a little low, but because no one ever really knows. But
Yeah.
it kind of it'll as long as you keep performing, you get better. It'll fall into place.
So let's dive into the info of performing, and let's first talk about handling audience members. One of the things that comes to mind is in a podcast already, we mentioned you that you often bring up the kids on stage that you think are going to be some of the most challenging because you like are just so good at handling. So can you talk a bit about handling audience members, maybe handling kids, maybe why you do that?
Oh, I mean, I don't think I choose kids that come up and be challenging per se. But I mean, if I see a kid that's being bad, I usually do want them because I know that they're gonna be loud, and I know that they're gonna be fun. And if it's fun for them, it's fun for me. And the more outspoken they are, the more outspoken I can be. Because if the kid's really shy and quiet, it actually makes my job more difficult.
Yeah, you have to like.
Because you don't want to overshadow him,
right?
but you still need to be the focus of attention, but you don't want to be this super big presence around this kid who's like, I don't really want to be here.
Yeah, well, because if a kid's really shy, sometimes it's hard to tell if they're having an amazing time, and they can be, but they're too shy to express themselves. But if you have a kid and they're screaming at your face and you're screaming at their face, and you guys are face to face screaming at each other, I'm doing hand motions. We're on a podcast. And it just makes it more interesting, right? And I think every moment of your show should be interesting or entertaining. And what I was saying is the other day I had sometimes you get like I call him a wanderer. It's like a kid that's just a little bit too young for the show, who just like gets up and starts walking through all the time. So I mean, I know some magicians get really annoyed with it. They'll look at the parents and they'll say something. I do something that always gets a huge laugh, and it tells the parents. I grab the kid by the shoulder, I move him over, I go, security! Right away, the parents know they want this kid gone, right? And it gets a big laugh because there is no security. It's a kid's magic show.
Right,
but they get the idea, and it's entertaining at the same time. So things like that I do all the time just to make every moment. Same with like when I never just ask a kid his name. I always have jokes about their names and stuff like that. I don't know.
Having a kid on stage that's very loud and very active is like an improv gold mine, you know? He's just feeding you lines and opportunities and different things, you know, compared to a shy kid who's basically playing the straight man.
Yeah,
you
or
know?
even a loud adult, I think, because children have this sort of sporadic mind that just goes in sort of random. They don't know how to react to the situation, whereas adults are just sort of like, they're either being rude or they're flabbergasted by magic,
and
right?
often timid on stage.
Oh yeah,
of
course.
If you pick, it's an interesting idea that if you pick the loud kid, then you know that he's not going to be like timid, and that you're picking like the most active audience member.
Yeah, it's it gives you more opportunities to sort of be over the top. Like if you watch David Williamson perform, right? Like it's. He doesn't seem to care which kid he brings up on stage. He just sort of seems to be over the top. But I think it makes it easier for you to have that when you have a louder kid. Going back to the idea of needing to perform a lot, you seem very comfortable on stage, and just going out there and performing is it sounds great, but for a lot of young magicians especially, I think that's something that'd be very challenging for them just to put themselves out there, right? So have you experienced, I mean, I'm sure you have experienced some sort of stage fright or anxiety or anything, but how did you get over it, and do you have any sort of horror stories or anything like that? Like, what are your experiences with nervousness?
So you're talking to the stage fright king. Like, I still to this day get sweaty palms, my heart's bouncing, like I'm getting ready to go on stage. I'm freaking out, and this is something that I dealt with and fought for a long time. Even when I first started doing magic, I started looking into the question about how to deal with stage fright, which I didn't get a lot of good answers from. guys are just like, gotta go do it, which is true. You do have to go do it. And I mean, that is pretty much the answer. You got to realize that stage fright is completely natural, right? If you do any study for it, it's actually a natural response because your fight or flight reflex is now based upon society rather than actual being murdered or chopped up or chased down. I don't know why anyone would chop you up too. Anyway, but like if you're scared to go on stage, you just gotta do it. Usually I say open with something you're very comfortable with, because I use my stage fright usually, or my nervousness usually goes away after my first laugh.
After you get a hit.
Yeah, so I need to get a good first laugh or a good first response. Because if you don't get that first good laugh or response, it can actually increase your stage fright on stage, which you don't want. And then if you start worrying about your shaky hands...
You also kind of like in your show, and I think that it's definitely something that goes through in stand-up. I know a little bit of improv, but in magic is something that I just heard Christian Engblom talk about, is that you want to like whip your audience into a frenzy, you know? Like, in comedy specifically, like, you need to win them over to start laughing together at all of your jokes. Like, there's a difference between a show that's hitting and a show that isn't hitting. It's just because every time, you know what I mean? Like, when your jokes start hitting, you know, and sort of the audience has come together as one. And that's, I mean, it's often hard to get in magic, but when you do, you know you have it. You have one of those performances that are, like, really, really...
synergetic.
Yeah, exactly. Powerful. You feel like everything that you're going to try is going to hit. And even just all of your jokes and all of your things are like really hitting very well. Do you have any specific tips? Maybe like, do you have any canned lines? I mean, I know you don't want other people stealing your canned lines, but do you have any ideas for things to like win over the audience early? Or do you think do good magic, or maybe like try to come up with what you think is funny, and like, I mean, because the problem is the first time you go at it, you're going to think what you think is funny, and then you're going to go at it and maybe it's not, and you're going to have that opposite reaction. So do you have any tips if someone's like, I want to go right now?
I always say so I think walk-on music is very important to set a tone, because people are very in tune with music naturally. So walk-on music I use for adults, and kids I always play B.O.B. Before, because it's got a lot of energy and stuff. When I'm doing like a large family show, there's two ways there's a ways to win over the kids, and there's a way to win over the adults. You want to get a clever laugh from the adults, and then you want to whip the kids up in a frenzy.
Yeah.
So when I walk up, I say, hey guys, I want to hear all the kids. Turn your indoor voices off and your outdoor voices on. Who wants to see some magic? You get a little bit of a scream. I say, I can't hear you. Who wants to hear some magic? They scream even louder. I say, the last group was way louder than you. Who here wants to see some magic? Now you got them screaming, I do. And I go, well then stop. Why are you yelling at me? Boom, now you've just won over the adults, because you've cleverly made the adults laugh in the same section that you've made the kids laugh in two completely different ways with the same joke. And it's just it seems to be working for me.
Clever double header when you've got a kid.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you want to throw jokes over the kids' heads, but you also want to make the kids very happy.
Enjoy themselves. Yeah.
The thing about doing magic, I find, is that if the kids are happy, then the adults are happy. Yeah. But if you can only keep the adults happy, you can't keep the kids happy.
Right.
So the secret is to always keep the kids happy, no matter what.
Yeah. If you can't satisfy both sort of intellectual standpoints, you at least need to make sure that the parents are like, all right, I paid for my kid to have this awesome, amazing, life-changing experience for them right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you have like ideal and worst spectators in terms of like people that come up? You know, like, because you do a lot of things, I mean, you do a lot of kids magic, you do a lot of like restaurant magic, so you see a lot of things a lot of times. Do you see an ideal spectator? Do you see like a bad spectator, know how to recognize it? Or do you sort of feel that like, you know, every spectator can be won over with enough, you know, oomph?
I don't think you can't really tell.
You know what I mean? Like,
from your audience, I don't think, because when they get up on stage, people can be very, very different than what you assume they are when they're sitting out in the audience. generally speaking, I'll do things like I'll choose my audience member according to visual comedy. So I'm 5'6", or I'm average height for a woman. Anyways, sometimes what I'll do is it's even better if I get a really tall woman, but if I can get a really tall man, that's funny too. So if I notice someone's really tall in the audience, I'll be like, hey, okay,
By the way,
over.
you should mention how tall you are so that people understand.
5'6".
Okay.
Yeah. It's easy to find someone who's a lot taller than me. So it's super funny to bring someone up, and then I'll say, "Oh, come up on stage." And as they're coming, what I do is I'll look beside me and point down beside me, and I'll say, "Here, come stand right here," as if I don't realize how tall they are yet, and then I'm going to be surprised by their height for the very first time, which obviously gets a huge laugh, but that's not the case. Yeah. So I've already chosen them because I know they're really tall, and now I'm going to bring them up on stage, and now I'm just going to point at the floor, and then I'm going to
give yourself an opportunity
give myself
to look all the way
up their body, up to their head. Then I'm going to look at them, look at the audience, look back up at them, look at the audience, and it always gets a huge laugh without even saying really anything. And now you've already won them over for this effect that you haven't even begun.
Wow. So the first time you even brought somebody up on stage, you already had verbal comedy and physical comedy. I mean, I don't know if that's the first thing, but that's definitely like a...
Yeah, I mean, without even beginning, you get a laugh. You know, sometimes they say in comedy, you gotta get your laugh in the first 8 seconds. Screw that, I get my laugh in like you gotta get your laugh in the first 8 words is what they say. Screw that, I'll get my first laugh in the first 0 words. All right, haven't even started the routine yet, and I'm already getting a laugh because of the visual imagery.
Yeah,
right. I think that's really interesting. I haven't thought about magic in that sense, where I've always really just been focusing on like not just the effect, but sort of shaping the magic moment and how to get there. But you really want to shape a show, right? Where it's more like they should be entertained the entire time, and then have magic as like a bonus for that, almost.
Well, I mean, it's a magic show, so in the end, the magic has to be strong, but the journey's got to be fun, because if you lose them during the journey, the climax will never be as strong,
right.
You know? And
that's sort of my issue with like stage illusion shows. At least for me watching them, I think that it's an amazing art form, but not all of them. I mean, I know you do stage illusions, and I'm sure your show, I haven't seen your show yet, but I'm sure it is entertaining throughout. But I mean, like when it's like just music, no talking, fog machines, lights, it's like I don't know what's happening, and I don't care that she's, cut in half now, or that her head turned around, or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So and this was my issue when I started this illusion show that I'm doing right now, Chris Westfallv and the Porcelain Princess. So first of all, I didn't want just a box jumper. I mean, it's nice to have a good little box jumper. I keep her at my house. So I wanted to find someone. So I found a girl who had a different style of skill. So she juggles, right? She juggles, and she's very like an actor type base. And I wanted to build a storyline. So in my illusion show, during the parts of illusion, and other illusionists do this as well, not just myself. But I wanted to not only follow a storyline, but I wanted it to be very character driven. So I don't play myself when I'm doing the illusions. I actually play this kind of mad scientist, and I'm bringing this doll to life through illusions and juggling. And it's basically a storyline where the girl goes from being a doll, so her movements and her juggling is very doll-like or mechanical, and as the show continues and she transforms, she becomes more human-like, and I'm just doing experiments on my creation,
sort of like a Frankenstein,
throughout the entire show. Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting. Very
That's
interesting.
really cool. And so, you created that because you just didn't want to have like an assistant to just jump around and jump in your boxes, and you wanted to have like an actual 2-person show, or did you also like why did you feel that it needed to be character driven and stuff like that? Like, there's other shows that are 2 people that are very like even, that aren't.
Yeah. But there's also the opposite, where it's just one person being like, I'm a magician.
Yeah, exactly.
She's gone, right? Yeah. And then bring her back out.
How did that factor?
So
I really like performance theater, so I thought, why I would, I could. The thing is that if you go to a magic show, you can if the tricks are okay or whatever, you can be like, oh, okay, boring, bam, how do you do that? Boring, bam, how do you do that? Okay,
Yeah.
same thing, whatever. But people go to theater shows and enjoy the entire thing without there being any magic. So why not combine the two
into it,
into the
Yeah.
story? You know,
I make the comparison of magic and film quite a bit, and I think that this is another valid point. It's like a movie that is like crazy boring until an amazing climax is nowhere near as good as something with a crazy climax that is compelling and interesting throughout. And having like a dynamic on stage of two people is always going to be more compelling than just watching one person perform.
yeah, for sure. Like,
have you ever thought of theatricizing your adult show in that manner?
like, what do you mean? Like,
I mean,
like as a
character-driven story instead of what it is. Because I know that if I'm not mistaken, like the Porcelain Princess is this story with the mad scientist, and your adult show is like Chris Westfallv.
Yeah, so I mean, my adult show is more like an over-exaggerated form of myself. I'm doing stand-up comedy style magic. I'm playing kind of myself as like a super confident type person. If I think about one of my favorite magicians is Rob Zabrecki. I don't know if you guys have ever seen him, but his entire show is playing this weird dark comedy weirdo. Like, he's just such a weird guy, and it's very and that is like my favorite style. But you have to make that decision and commit to that character. Chris Mayhew does it too. He plays kind of this dorky low self-esteem character throughout his show, and he's decided to make that commitment, and I really do love that style, and it's awesome. Definitely something I'm
well, when you have, I think exactly what you said, when you have a character and when you have like a plot and when you have a story, like that's something that not a lot of magic has, but I think that that's a really good strategy to like win over the audience for the whole entire length of the show, and almost like build the cohesiveness of everyone being together.
Yeah, I know that's something you're trying to do with your show.
Yeah, I was working on a couple of absolutely ridiculous ideas, but they were all completely stories. One was about a magic hat that just like people wore, and it did all these different things, and like a thinking cap was the idea. But I sort of stopped with that idea because my problem was that I didn't think that a thinking cap was a real enough thing. You know, like it was something that I sort of invented, and I wanted a thinking cap to be I wanted it to be something that already existed in the world, like
a little more tangible.
Exactly. So now I'm working on something using the concept of time travel, because I think that just people know what time travel is. It's in pop culture. People like understand what it is. So if I bring it up and I try to use it, you know, it's the sort of thing that are in people's heads already. But I'm trying to...
Sometimes I think... I mean, time travel is a really cool idea. And there are some guys who use it, like the Otter Bridges use it, and what was their names that use it a lot out in the UK? Two funny guys.
Oh,
I don't know their names.
Yeah, I don't...
When it comes down to, like, creating a show, like you said with the thinking cap, I mean, this is your imagination, right? So, I mean, as long as they can understand the premise that you're trying to create, you can actually do anything you want. And this thinking cap can be completely real as long as you can convey it the way that you see it in your mind. And that's obviously the hardest part,
of course,
right? To create something and then be able to explain so that they understand the same way you understand.
Right. It's sort of like you have to put that's where the acting comes in, I think. That's also what makes believable acting, is you want to sort of almost believe what you're telling for yourself. You know what I mean? Like I think that's one of the things that makes magic such a fun and expressive art, is that you can make a whole show about something that genuinely interests you, right? And you genuinely care about. And that's something I've been trying to do with my magic, is have my, I guess, sort of plots for my effect be relatable to my life, and in turn relatable to everybody else's life.
Mm-hmm. I heard one thing that really got me was Aussie Wind said in a lecture, he was like, you can just do stuff because you like it. You don't really need a reason. And I thought that was really awesome. Like, I kind of laughed, and I was like, yeah, I guess I can just make a show out of whatever. And before I sort of thought like, this is how magic shows are. They're kind of like open, trick, 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 close. And then I didn't really like that, and I wanted to build a different structure. So, anyways, I thought that was really cool. So I guess I agree. I might be able to do the thinking cap idea. I don't know what I think about it, but I like the idea that you can do anything, because that's what I'm trying to.
And that's what magic's all about, right? So it's like whatever you can think of.
Possible.
I mean, you're basically saying this can disappear and this can reappear and this can float, but the storyline better make sense. I mean, the storyline should make sense. I'm saying that wrong, but I mean, anything is possible in magic. Yeah. So your storyline can be completely fictional as well, right?
No, I mean, I actually think the hopes are that it's super fictional. Like I like when a storyline is fictional, like time travel is fictional.
Yeah,
right? Like don't get me wrong.
Oh, of course.
I mean, unless it's not. Well, whatever.
But I guess I know what you're saying. It's easier to explain because they already know.
Yeah,
what
like
time
if I
travel
go in
is.
there and I'm like, here's a magic hammer where like it does all these things. People are like, I've never heard of a magic hammer, and that's going to be incredibly difficult to win people onto my side to. Play the game and play into my story. A thinking cap is maybe a little bit more, but I don't really know. People hear of a thinking cap maybe in grade 3 or 4 when a teacher says, put on your thinking cap, and that's about the end of that. So that was sort of why I wanted to use time travel, so that I could like use a concept that people maybe have a little bit of familiarity with, so that I didn't have to like, kill myself with like, here's my magic gecko that does this when I rub it and does this. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, I think so. When you say like, if someone's explaining the show later on, they're gonna be like, "Oh, what was the show about?" I'll be like, "Oh, time travel. Oh, that's cool." But if someone goes, "Oh, it's about the thinking cap." "Oh, the thinking cap. What's that?" It's this thing he sticks on his head, and you might have a couple. I've had people that have watched the Porcelain Princess show, and they've had different ideas. All good ideas, all tangible ideas, but they've had their own ideas about certain things, and people's memory can actually make your thinking cap go in a million different directions, which makes it very interesting. But if someone goes time travel, they're like, "Oh, I know what that is." Okay, well, I don't need to ask you any questions because I already know what time travel is. Mm-hmm. But if you say thinking cap, it's like, okay, what do you mean by that? And then
I mean, hopefully the time travel thing would be a little bit more in depth, you know what I mean? Like, it would have a structure so that maybe when they retold it, they would say something like...
But they might not get the opportunity to retell it if people don't... it's not something unique and interesting. And be like, wait, you went to a magic show and it was about...
Because they already have an idea in their head what time travel is, so it doesn't need to be explained. They're just going to imagine it whatever way they've already imagined it.
I guess having a weird or unique show premise is good in terms of the promotion, just because... people speaking about it need to go into more depth when they talk about it.
And it's just more work on your part because you have to convey it.
Of course.
Like, so that they understand it in at least some way or form. Even if they make it up in their own head.
So how did you go from... Like, did you find it was a challenging transition to go from, like, regular magic structure to this sort of different show dynamic? Like, how did you bring it about? Did you get any help in terms of building the theatrics of it all, like maybe the plot of it, or did you just sort of think up the plot and then make sure that it worked out and then sort of choreograph it as you thought about it?
The Porcelain Princess show, which did so well across the whole country, it came... I'm going back now to when we were talking about the restaurant. I got called about doing a cross-country show. And the guy's like, we want you to do a cross-country illusion show. I'm like, you don't need an illusion show. My stand-up comedy family show is already great. He's like, nope, 3 illusions or I'll find someone else. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And I had no illusions. All right? I had no girl. I had no storyline. I had no show. So I've already now committed to this illusion show, knowing that I'm just going to add 3 illusions to a show that I already know I was already doing in the East Coast, and I was already traveling and people were already buying it like crazy. I'm like, okay, I just have to add 3 illusions. And then I came up with this storyline to kind of to create around my show. And And like I said, I think it's always important to add music. And
did you get any help in doing that, or you just sort of used your experience?
It was mostly in my
together?
mind, and
Cool.
Bella is the girl, and we kind of just sat down and came up with these ideas. And the show was already good off the bat once we started performing it, but definitely over the course of 36 shows across the country, by the end of the tour, like, there was things that were part of the show now, like doing all this lighting changes and stuff that, like...
Was there anything that went horribly wrong while you were doing this first stage, illusion experience? Like, was there any like heckling, or did you mess up any tricks or lighting issues or anything like that were memorable?
There was some small issues with lighting, because we do work each other's lighting and each other's music. But I mean, it's just like anything else. You probably notice it more than your audience. I did have an issue with one of the sponsors saying, "Can you bring my child up on stage?" And I completely forgot. And they got really upset about the situation to the tour manager, and basically said, we're not gonna, I don't know. So if you promise a sponsor you're gonna bring their kid up on stage, do it.
Bring your kid up on stage.
That's really funny. Okay, so just to round up, I want to ask a final question. We usually do this, and then we all touch on the topic. So the question is how to handle an audience member that how to select an audience member to come up on stage. So I'll tell, I think, a really, really, really funny story. Well, you'll be the judge, but I brought somebody up on stage, and part of what they needed to do is I needed to be able to read their handwriting. They needed to write something down, I needed to read what it said. And that went horribly wrong. And I had absolutely no idea what was written, and the way that it was structured in the show, it was really important. So I guess I did not really explain that story very well, but the idea is that now for that trick, I pick someone who I subjectively think will have really good handwriting, and that's a weird thing for me to look for in an audience member. Like, I think it's probably strange that you look for somebody that's tall, but I think it's weird that for this trick, I go to the audience and I'm looking for someone who I just subjectively think has weird handwriting.
Good handwriting.
Sorry, absolutely good handwriting for that trick. Other than that, I've never really thought of that. So I generally have brought people up on stage who I just think are engaged or anything else like that. That was a horrible question. So you can have any points on that question or anything else. Do you have any final points, Tyler?
Yeah, I think that one of the most interesting things I've sort of started thinking about now since having this conversation is that there's so many different avenues, or just starting this podcast in general, there's so many different avenues of magic, and a lot of it is just risk-taking. Like, this is the second time, I don't know if we have it recorded, but the second time a magician has mentioned to us that they've booked shows with stuff that they can't do yet. Like, they've said they've had a trick they can do and they don't have a method for it, or they haven't bought in the effect yet, or something like that. Like, you said, I am going to do a 36-show tour having never done stage illusions, and that's amazing to me, and I think that the sort of merging of the different avenues, like with your improv and acting, and how that can just sort of coast you through this chaotic sort of thing that we do in creating magic.
So two things. So I'll talk about two things really fast.
Sure.
So the illusion thing, this is going to be very controversial, because you're going to have a lot of people that go, that's BS. You have to have everything completely organized, patented. Everything should be perfect before you put it on stage, which is true. Now, I, as a performer who's already done it for 10 years, I'm very self-aware. So I knew that I could go and bring this stuff onto stage for the very first time. We did rehearse it a bunch. We had 5 months to rehearse it. I mean, I did say yes before it existed.
Yes,
but then,
and.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and. Exactly. I did say yes, and then I created the show. But, like, I'm very self-aware with my performance. So I was able to I think realistically create it into my mind, knowing exactly what I had to do, and then I did it.
Right.
So you can't just, you can't, if you have, when he said, can you do an illusion show, the wheels started rolling right away.
Yeah.
Like I was already like, how am I going to make this possible? You have to have a realistic end zone.
But it seems like a lot of the things
course.
like opportunities be picked, like, do you have a business card? Do you have, and then that's how you sort of
that's how you evolve, and I think
start doing them. And
and the only way you can have a perfectly designed show is like you can only practice in front of a mirror for so long,
Of course.
right? Until you're like, okay, no, these people can see her running away, like, you know what I mean? They see the flashy thing, you know.
And and the second thing was your routine with the writing. I don't know what routine it is, but I've been in the exact same situation for routine that I used to do all the time, and I love it. And that evolved into a situation where they couldn't come up and do small handwriting or crappy handwriting because I couldn't read a word that I needed to read. Maybe we're even talking about the same effect.
we are.
I'm not sure.
I think we are.
So what I did, so now when I brought them up, I said, I want you to find a word, and I want you to print it down in big, bold letters.
You gave me that tip, and now I do.
And I said, print it down in big, bold letters, and make sure that you dot your I's, and make sure that you cross your T's, because if we fight on this stage, you're going to beat me, and I'll never finish the trick. So something along those lines. So then you're still entertaining with your words, but you're also letting him know that he better write this down the way that you need it written down.
Yeah, and if I just have a second final point, because my first final point was nonsense, I'll just say that I'm feeling very, very motivated and encouraged to work more on the structure of the entire show, and to have the show be different than what other people are doing. Because first of all, I think that making a story is going to help it be cohesive, and it's going to help me, place my character and build it. But second of all, I think that it's going to help. It's going to help get the audience together with me and build an entire journey together, and that's
a more immersive experience.
Exactly,
yeah.
And that's something that I'm really striving for, and I think that is a really big thing in your magic. So
or at least the theme, I think.
Yeah,
if you look
at
Bobby Mata, his show is a series of.
He'll be on soon. He's on a podcast coming up soon.
So if you look at Bobby Mata, his show is a series of effects, but it has a very solid theme, and that's that this guy is doing stuff that is unexplained, and everything he does is not overlapping something else. It is a series of effects, but at the same time, it's a very solid structure,
premise, and
idea of it is the Bobby Mata show, and although it's not really a storyline, it has a solid theme.
And even so, like you said, the
it.
more to an extent, the more unique your show is, the more that when people have to explain it, they have to say more. You don't want them being like, I saw a magician. You want them being like,
I saw a guy and he just did things
he
I don't know what it was.
Yeah, or maybe more specific. They'll say like, I saw a guy and together we went back to the year 1922 and we met this person and we did this and then we came back and you know what I mean? Like, if it's an experience like that, when they retell it, it might benefit for promotion. So with that, before we wrap up, is there anything that you want to plug? Do you have any products, opportunities, teams, places that you'll be?
Is there any final thoughts that you want to share? Not even about our topic. Just any last thing you want to say while you have a mic in your face.
Just basically, guys, if you want to perform, do it. All right. Performing tricks and not getting caught flashing on Facebook is great, but it's not going to help you in the real world. If this is what you decide that you want to do, like in real life, and actually perform for real people, the only way to do it is to perform for real people. And I think, do you have
anything to plug or anywhere people can follow you? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Also, you guys, if anyone's doing the restaurant stuff, I have a DVD and a book. I have a book, Calculated Chaos, that has different topics in it that might help you, like approaching people, being rejected. Guys, if you're rejected at a table, let me give you a quick tip. Don't just walk away shamelessly. You should look at them like I do and say, thank goodness, now I get a 4-minute break. Make them laugh and wanting more before you walk away, because that's what they wanted.
And people check you out on Instagram or Twitter or anything
Instagram,
like that?
at Chris Westfallv Magic. Twitter, Westfallv Magic. Facebook, Chris Westfallv Magic. Ladies, you can find me on Tinder and Match.com.
Awesome.
No longer Christian Mingle.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you all on the next episode of Discourse in Magic.
Take care. Thank you guys so much for listening. It was a blast to record with Chris. I hope you found a lot of value in the episode. He had a lot of great tips. If you want to come hang out with us this year at Sorcerer Fire Magic Camp, I'll be there. Joan will be there. Chris will be there.
Yeah, Sorcerer's Fire Camp 2016. It's going to be an absolute blast. Suzanne the Magician was just announced as a special guest who fooled Penn and Teller. So it's going to be a real blast. I am mega, mega, mega excited. And if you liked what happened in this episode and you want to jam out with Chris, or you want to just have the best week of your life, please come for a weekend. It's going to be absolutely amazing. As always, check us out on Twitter, and please sign up for our newsletter, because this is the last episode before our first real newsletter comes out, and it is packed with content. We've been working on it all month long.
Like dogs. For you.
Yes.
So sign up.
So we want
Please.
you to be able to take it, because you will not be able to access this if you're not on the newsletter when it goes out. So please hop on that newsletter, and thank you so much.
Yeah.
We'll see you on the next episode. Peace.